who looks like
Okay.
all right. Well, that was funny.
That was real funny right there. Uh-huh.
Good night. How y'all doing tonight, Village Rising? Let me tell y'all are in for a treat tonight. I'm telling you, I just don't know. Sometimes we come across these treasures and we get an opportunity to get educated, to go to school, to get nurtured, to learn, to be enlightened. And tonight is that night. I met a marvelous man here in Tulsa who is a Tulsa treasure. Um, Many of people around Tulsa and around the nation know him, but our Village Rising community tonight is going to get to know Mr. Bobby Eaton. I don't even know what name to give him. I could say entrepreneur, I could say activist, I could say musician, I could say Mr. Make It Happen. So I'm just gonna call him Bobby since that's probably the best name I could do. Village Rising has been here in Tulsa. We have been working on a couple of things to bring together our community and our healthcare and our visions. And so we've been traveling. And we came here today. We accomplished a lot more than I actually wanted to by meeting Mr. Bobby Eaton this afternoon. See, when your parents used to tell you, you never know where you're going to be and who you're going to meet and what's going to happen. Let me tell you, believe them, because this is something that is going to be life-changing for some of you out there who are not really sure if you can do things. You know, we get a lot of young kids saying, I want to do this, I want to do that, I'm not sure if I can do it. When you hear people and you hear the stories and you know where they've come from and what they're doing, you get to understand that we're not just restricted to what society or the media has told us that we can do. Black Wall Street, as most people know, you hear about the celebrations of it, you hear a little bit about it, you see what the media tells you. But the gentleman that I'm going to introduce in a few to you is a treasured member of Tulsa. He is Tulsa history. He is third generation. His grandfather actually was a fixture in the community and was here during the Tulsa riots. He had his own barbershop, which was also a fixture for the civil rights community. And so we're bringing real education and we're talking about real Tulsa and real rejuvenation and real Black Street. So without further ado, I'm going to stop talking and let him do some intro before we go to some question and answer. So ladies and gentlemen, drum roll, Mr. Bobby Eaton.
Well, hey, first of all, I want to thank you, Dr. Mays, for having me on this platform right here. It's an honor to be able to express what we've done here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and what has taken place right here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I'm glad I'm able to share these stories right here. Born and raised right here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Went to Booker T. Washington High School. Me and along with Charlie Wilson and all of us to school together, and we're friends and we're boys and stuff like
That's
that.
Uncle Charlie to y'all young people.
Uncle Charlie, and we all went to school here, raised up in the community when it was a community, when Black people were unified and we didn't have to go anywhere for anything, because we had all of our grocery stores and all of our restaurants and recreational facilities and things like that. Everybody was unified back in those days. And I grew up never hearing about the massacre that took place in 1921.
Really?
It was never discussed amongst a whole lot of us. I didn't learn about it until I was actually grown, because my grandfather had a barbershop.
Right
here in the community of Tulsa, Oklahoma. And upon him having this barbershop, all of these iconic black men would come in this barbershop during a period of time when blacks weren't allowed to eat in restaurants and stuff. So the civil rights movement for North Tulsa started in that barbershop that my grandfather built. My dad headed up a lot of that movement, and my uncle cut hair in there, my dad cut hair in there, and my grandfather cut hair in this barbershop. So these men would come in there and they stay even after hours strategizing protests against these white restaurants who wouldn't allow blacks to eat there. I was a little kid. I was had the broom sweeping up and things like that. And I learned a lot about activism. I saw a lot of the different activists in the community, strong black men going out serving, servicing the community, and getting together, and unification was taking. It was unified. People were taking place, doing things, helping each other, and it was kind of like the Black Wall Street way of life. Because if you know about Black Wall Street, they helped each other. That black dollar would go around 30, 40 times and go just throughout the community and come back to you. If you were building a house, I would help you build your house. If I was building a house, you'd help me build mine. Black businesses grew because of the unification of black people. They were getting together. They were working together. They had some pride and sense of dignity about themselves. It was a no-nonsense type of environment down there. And it was all about entrepreneurship, being business owners. Banks, had plenty of banks. Even a few blacks had airplanes. One of my cousins had an airplane down there, and taxi cab services. Some of the greatest musical artists came down there for entertainment, like Nat King Cole and Duke Ellington, Cab Calloway, and all of these other entertainers would come down on Greenwood, right here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So that was devastation to what took place down there, because it was so horrific down on Greenwood. Very horrific, and they wanted to keep it hush hush. They didn't want the world, Tulsa didn't want the world to know about what took place down there during that period in time, And that massacre started between a white lady named Sarah Page and a black guy named Dick Rowland were on a elevator, and something happened. She screamed. He got off the elevator and ran, and they arrested him. Some World War veterans came down to where the jail cell was and said, because they said they were going to hang him, and that's what they were going to do. They were going to hang him. And so somebody grabbed, weapon went off, bam, the massacre started and took place. They say 300 blacks died from that. I believe that the numbers were greater than that, because I think some of those bodies were they put them in the river. They put them all over.
I think that when I was doing some research,
Mm-hmm.
now, of course, this is like people who were researching from way back and talked to some of the people, and then went actually into, because, I've also gone to that cemetery where they've dumped some graves.
Oh, yeah. I've been out there.
And I couldn't believe, no headstones, no nothing. It's just...
Well, see, the city of Tulsa dug those bodies up. And once they dug on and discovered that, oh man, mass graves are right here. For a long time, we didn't know about those mass graves. We knew it was maybe some in there, and they discovered some, but not a proper burial has taken place. They dug them up, took some DNA samples, and then just covered them back up.
Well, according to the research of the Humane Network, they estimate it to be somewhere between 1,100 to 1,600.
I can see that. I can see that. Tulsa's been a city that covers up a whole lot of stuff, when especially there's been racial divide here, and blacks here in Tulsa, Oklahoma today, we're suffering. We've been traumatized. It's so, we've been traumatized throughout the years behind this massacre and what took place back in 1921, and haven't really recovered recovered from it. You know, I got the last of Greenwood. They went back down there and rebuilt it.
Right.
Yeah, they went after the man. They went back there and rebuilt it. And I got the latter part, very last part of Greenwood. You know, when black businesses were down there, and then urban renewal, which I call urban removal,
right,
came down there, and they tore down all of the old buildings. OSU Tulsa, Oklahoma State University Tulsa, came down there and bought up all of the property, built a big old school down there, you know, and then the black school, which is Langston University, a little small section for them, and then they built houses all along down off.
Yeah, it seems like Langston is like encompassed in it, and
Yeah.
it's so small, but you could tell it had a greater. When it first started, it had one of HBCUs, but there seems to be like they brought the property around it. Purchased.
Well, basically, they just took over the property. They ran a freeway right through it, right. And there's just a small section of Black Wall Street that exists right down there by Vernon AME Church and the Cultural Center, and so just a little small section. And when you come down there, most people think you're going to see a big, long, you know, area, but it's a little small segment down off in there, you know, and some of the bricks and mortar that's down there are burnt. You can see where they set it on fire. And it was such a horrific event that took place down there, you know, amongst all of the blacks. I mean, one particular story that really shook me was the fact that during that massacre, blacks were running down the street trying to get away. And it was a pregnant lady. She was running. And she was running, and they said to her, one of the white guys had a gun, and he says, "Where you going, nigger?" She says, "I'm trying to get away." She was pregnant. And he took out his knife and split her stomach open, and her baby just fell out. And he took his boot, and he just bashed her head in with his boot. See, those are the kind of things that are so traumatic and so devastating. Does it make you angry? Yeah, it makes you angry to know that some people cannot have a heart, because, you know, they used to hang us from trees. They used to cut our body parts off, ears, private parts, everything, laugh right after Sunday service. You know, after praising God and praising Jesus, go out and do a hanging, and boom, that's what they used to do during those periods and during those times. Those blacks survived down there on Black Wall Street because whites wouldn't sell them building materials. They didn't get a lot of their building materials from the whites here in Tulsa. They had to have them shipped in from other places, export, import, and brick and mortar and stuff. But they worked, and they had pride, and they had dignity, and they dressed good. The women looked good, and the guys looked good, and it was all about family, and it was all about, some of those blacks down there even had plumbing back in 21. They had banks, a lot of banks. You could get loans and things like that. They had all kind of businesses that were thriving down there. That's why they called it Black Wall Street. You know, so Booker T. Washington named it that, Black Wall Street, you know, because of the economic development that took place down there, you know. And to come back home and to see what it's become, it's just kind of saddens me that, you know, it's just not what I, you know, what you would expect it to be.
Well, I see a lot of development. And it's a lot, like I see there's a Holiday Inn, and then there's another thing. And so these are, when you think of, when they say redevelopment of Black Wall Street, when I think of that, I'm thinking of redevelopment of Black Wall Street. Now, I'm aware that everything is not going to be as it was in 1921, but I just, it's a lot of commercialized stuff.
Well, the things that I see being built around down off in there, it's gentrification. We're not building nothing.
Right.
Black people are not building nothing. White people are coming down there, big development companies, and building high-rise, this and that all around. And we're not building anything as a people. And they're just moving in and taking over certain areas of Black Wall Street, and it's not as black as it should be. It's kind of like me coming over to your house and telling you what to do, and we're going to change the colors, and we're going to move this in. We don't like your sofa, so we're going to take your sofa out and put our sofa in. So, and that's just an example, but that's what's taking place. And I think that if more blacks would go down there on Black Wall Street and invest, you must invest your finances. And there are blacks here with money that could do that. There are blacks here who work for big companies like American Airlines, Williams Company, Post Office, you name it. They're here. They retired. They got pension funds, been to the military and stuff, and got all kinds of stuff. But they just kind of sit back and don't invest. They don't invest into the community, which the community suffers because there are no black investors, and we kind of like to let other ethnic groups invest.
Well, something you said
and that's countrywide though. That's not just here in Tulsa.
But here's a problem with that. When a place such as Tulsa, which is such a historical landmark, such a historical time, I am interested in how such development was done when this is a historical area. Historical means it's supposed to be restored to similar. If it was destroyed, it's supposed to be restored similar, like-minded, or as much close to the original as it was. It is in the paperwork. It says historical Tulsa.
Well,
Black Wall Street.
That word historical can be just a title.
Because
when you don't make reparations to take care of something that you've destroyed, well, look, we did destroy it. So in the city itself, don't say, well, we've got to give this money back to all these black people so they can rebuild their community. That's what reparations is, giving back the finances to be able to do that. When the city you don't acknowledge that, then just saying historical.
But they're giving urban development.
Yeah, but see, the thing about it is, okay, for example, last year was the celebration of 100 years, centennial for Black Wall Street. All of these people came from all over the country, all over the world, came to Black Tulsa. They came down there, and it was the president of the United States came down there, Joe Biden, and everybody, Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton's, you name it, Sheila Jackson Lee's, everybody was here. And it was a celebration, and that's all it was. Because I told them, I was amongst all of them, and I was talking to all of these high-profile people, and I said, you know what? One thing that I realized is that you guys are here right now, but you're going to leave, and I still got to be here. I still got to be here. And I was thinking, well, you're coming in and you're acknowledging all the history and all what has taken place. Why come there are not any programs that you guys who have the pulling power do for reparations and to do economic development to help build some cleaners and some youth centers or something right here in this community, right, and invest? You don't have to always use your personal money. You can just verbally say some things and people will give and do things where you can have some economic.
Just because of who you are.
Just because of who you are. The president could have said, look, we have a fund going on and blah, blah, donate to this fund and blah, 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 blah for Black Wall Street. And people would have just gone and then have some black developers come and start building out and doing some projects. But those type of things were never implemented doing that celebration, and that's just what it was: celebration, music, song, people coming,
it
just
was a way
talking
for people to come in and be seen.
and be seen, and who's who. And some people get upset with me about it because I speak about it, but I speak the truth. That's what it was to me.
But you also have every right, because you're a direct descendant
Yes,
of your grandfather right there.
My grandfather, Joseph Eaton, was down there on Greenwood during the massacre. He shined shoes. He had a gold piece chain on him and stuff like that. And he was down there. The house that I'm living in right now, he built. It's 100 years old. The building that I'm in, he built, where I house my radio station. He built. So it's so sad that when we get things, that when we obtain economic wealth and things, is always destroyed and knocked down and sold and things like that. So our children never get to see things when they grow up. They never knew that a school was over here, or some kind of center was over there, or a restaurant was here.
Because we don't preserve.
Black people don't preserve anything like other races. They preserve their heritage and history.
Well, we don't set up generational wealth.
No, we don't. We don't.
A lot of people don't realize is generational wealth is property.
Yeah, it is property.
It's property, because you could not have a lot of money, but if you go to the bank and you have some property, you're more prone to get a loan.
Yeah.
For that property, because you have something. You have something. You don't have to have a lot of money in your bank account. You don't have to have a superior job, but you have something. And we don't teach, and I've been told that. My friends laugh at me. They call me tight, and I don't like to spend money and this and that. But I invest in things that are going to invest in me, and that's going to invest in my future, and that we're going to be able to have, because people were counting on Social Security and all that other stuff. Look, in 20 years,
count. You don't need to count on that.
Be happy if you got that coming along.
Even got that coming along.
But I took a trip down today, after I left the meeting on Black Wall Street, and went down. I'm gonna say this street, and I was so disappointed. But I mean, there's a street like that in every Black America in this country.
Right, it is.
Peoria.
Yeah.
Going down.
Yeah.
There's so many buildings and there's so many houses that are boarded up. So, and I have to think it is a lack of reinvestment. Some things I'm thinking, if some of the houses that I looked at, maybe I know in Louisiana we have a big problem with families losing their property for tax sales, abatements, stuff like that. So I'm thinking that's some of it.
Yeah.
But I also see businesses that are just like, I could see something looks like it used to be a Family Dollar or something like a Walgreens and something else, and it's just boarded up. It would seem as though the elected officials and community leaders and activists and clergy and everybody else should be working along the same accord. And when one moves out, there should be somebody else moving in. And we had this conversation earlier on Black Wall Street with one of the younger people who is down on Black Wall Street. And what he said was he has a problem with his business because the people that look like him, who are quick to scream Black Lives Matter and Black people this and Black people that, take their dollars outside of the community and go and spend it with somebody that's doing the same thing he's doing, but not with him. And so it's hard to understand.
When you're mentally conditioned to spend your dollars elsewhere, and you pass up a Black business that's selling the same product that you're looking for, but you go out and spend it amongst the white community and their taxpayers' dollars, they receive all of the credit and all of that. And then because see, we always want to hook up with our businesses.
Yes.
We'll go in and we'll see a shirt and we'll say, the shirt is for $30. We want to see if we can get it for $25. Hey man, look here, I'll get it for $25. But that same shirt is at Dillard's, for $45, and we'll pay premium price for that. We won't ask for no hookup.
Nope.
You know what I mean? So not with them, but we always, within our businesses, we won't always want to get a hookup. We want a discount on something with us.
Right.
When we need to be, if it's $30, we need to be paying our businesses $35.
Right, to be able to stay afloat.
To stay afloat.
I think what has happened is when people talk about generational curses, I think they on a spiritual realm and all that. But for me, a generational curse is lacking information from one generation to the next.
When the seniors and the elders don't pass down good, pertinent, strong information about the lineage and the history that they've come up in, and they don't notify and let the younger generation know about anything, they become ignorant to who they really are.
Well, I said it on a panel a couple of weeks ago, and I could see the people cringing because, when you start speaking things that are not politically correct, people start cringing. And so, we're on this big critical race theory, whatever. And so one of the presenters said, I have a problem, blah, blah, blah. I said, well, let me explain to you what my problem is. I need to know why the percentage of African-American kids know about slavery, but don't know about Black Wall Street. Know about slavery, but don't know about the wealth and the king. See, it's easy.
But the thing about that is they know about slavery, that there was slavery, but they don't know the inside of slavery. They just know that white people used to enslave Black people and have them work in the fields and farms, and they used to whip them and kill them. That's all they basically know. They don't even know how slavery even came about. They don't know that those slave ships come out of Europe, through, the Bible. I'm going to speak this now. Everybody not going to agree with me on this. The Bible, the King James Version of the Bible was written in 1611, right? He was so intrigued with the Bible from the Hebrew scriptures that he wanted it for his kingdom. So he took some scribes and he translated that Bible from Hebrew to English in the year 1611. Once he did that, once he transferred that Bible, he had to get a picture of Jesus, because he changed all the names of the prophets' names to English names. John, Luke, Timothy, all that. Everybody's name is European names. He changed all them prophets' names. And also he changed Yeshua's name to Jesus.
Yes.
To Jesus. So because Hebrew scripture, they don't have the letter J in their alphabet. So once he changed that and he got the book all together and he distributed it to his kingdom over in Europe, the King James Version of the Bible, he kicked all of the vagabonds and the thugs and heathens out of there. Columbus and them was thugs.
Yes.
And he kicked them out and they went to the seas and they incarcerated around the Caribbean slaves and went over to Africa and incarcerated Africans over there in Africa, and they built ships and stuff, the good ship Jesus, and started the Atlantic slave trade back and forth, for years, thousands of slaves were brought to the Americas. They kicked the Native Americans in the butt, off the land, and they that's how slavery began. They change your name, they strip you from your name and your spirituality and everything, and they use the book, the King James Version, to beat you with it, and only gave it to certain people like Nat Turner, who they taught him, oh, Nat knows how to read, we're going to have him go and preach to these, he rebelled. He said, wait a minute, now this ain't right. So he started killing white folks. You know what I mean? So like that, they put scriptures in the book called like slaves obey your masters. Mm-hmm. There's only one master. That's God himself.
Yeah, and they also watered him down because the guy, and I always say this to a lot of people, when you go into churches, mm-hmm. I know it's not politically correct to say it, but if you've ever seen Woodstock, the hippies and everything, I don't know who they took the picture of at the Woodstock, but every picture of Jesus looks like some guy.
Well,
some hippie guy.
The way it came about is Michelangelo, the artist, who we all know. You heard of Michelangelo?
Yes.
Painted a picture of his cousin Caesar Borgias with blonde hair and blue eyes and a long pointed nose. And that was the picture that King James and them said, that's Jesus. That's the depiction of Jesus. In the Bible, King James Version of the Bible, he only translated 66 books. He didn't translate all the books. He didn't translate the book of Maccabees. He didn't translate the book of Enoch. He didn't translate all of those books and other books. He just all he did was 66 books to what felt good to him. So, and then during the translation, it was like, all right, I'm going to distribute this to my kingdom. This is what I want them to know. And he did that. He did that. And so, boom, here we got Christianity, religion, and we got everything going. We're stripping the natural religious beliefs and spirituality from the Africans. We're going to strip them we're going to call voodoo a bad thing. It's going to be, it's horrific, which over in Africa it wasn't, But we're not knowledgeable here in our country, because when they were coming on slave ships, those white men would separate the black man and the black woman from each other on those slave ships, and they would have sex with you at will anytime they felt it. That's why you got a light-skinned Bobby Eaton. That melanin changed, from this color right here to us.
Right.
It changed. Some of those slaves even jumped off those ships and killed themselves. They in the belly of those ships, like the good ship Jesus and the Amistad ships, those guys were rowing those ships with chains and stuff on. The stench was so strong. Death was in those ships. All in those ships, bowel movements and stuff. It was just bad in those sad bellies of those ships. And like I said earlier, that those guys was having sex with Kizzy and so-and-so, and they were at will, and they jumped off those ships. They killed, some of them killed themselves before they even got to the Americas, and when you've been so traumatized like that, and you believe in so much stuff like that. And when you got to when the slave, I used to always wonder, how could a slave master and his wife, and maybe a couple of kids, little white kids, and two white men on horses be over 40 slaves?
Yeah, I've always wondered.
Control, because they control them mentally.
Yep, it's a mental.
Mentally. There's a gentleman that's Willie Lynch.
Yeah.
Some of you guys have heard of Willie Lynch. Some of you haven't.
Willie Lynch syndrome. It just depends on what part you've heard about Willie Lynch.
Yeah, what part you heard. Willie Lynch was a guy who slave masters called on to come to their plantations and give them information on how to control their slaves. And he would come. And the story be told is that he would come and he says, hey, Mr. Johnson, your slaves are all out of control. You don't have no control over your 40 slaves out there. So what we need to do is set some examples of how, you can control your slaves. He says, what you do is you get a male slave and put him in the middle circle, let him circle around him, and you have sex with him in front of all the rest of the slaves. You demean his manhood. You take the light-skinned ones, separate them from the dark-skinned ones, and you make them the house Negroes, and then you got the field Negroes, and then you pleat them against each other. You give them one suit and let them be feel uppity, you know what I mean, and let them eat your leftovers on your dinners and stuff, and then throw the slop and stuff out to the field slaves, the chitlins and things of that nature out to them. And then you'll cause a division. You give all of your instruction, what you want on your plantation, to Big Mama. You don't give it to John or Sam. You go tell Big Mama, look, I want this field over here plowed, Mammy, and we want a Big Mama, Mammy, we need this over here. And you tell John and you tell Sam to go over here and do that, okay? That's what I want. So you tell them. She go and tell Master say he want this. He need 500 pounds of cotton picked. And Master want that. He give instructions to Big Mama. He would go into the slave quarters and have sex with Kizzy, who's married to Sam, right in front of him. This Willie Lynch told him to do these kind of things. He would strap ropes on one hand and on both hands and tie him to two horses in front of all the slaves, spank the horses and let him split his body open and so his guts will fall out in front of all the slaves and install fear.
Yeah, fear is a factor.
Fear would install that fear. Those slaves will be so traumatized with all the visually seeing that and witnessing that, they would almost obey anything that the master say.
Well, fear. And it went further than that, because we can take that same concept and take it into even the civil rights movement.
Oh, for sure.
You didn't have, how do you have police officers in the Klan going into communities, 7 of them on a horse with some torches or whatever they had, in a community of 40 and 50 people,
mm-hmm.
and striking that fear? Like,
fear.
I never understood how, like, who didn't, like, we have so much today of Black men going into their neighborhoods and killing other Black men,
mm-hmm.
Gang members and,
mm-hmm.
and things like that. And that you don't see. And that's a statistic that I explain to people a lot. Look at the number of murders of Black men killing whites. It is the smallest
number
in murders and crimes in the nation. Now, they'll steal,
mm-hmm.
rob. They don't know who they're robbing. They don't know color-wise who they're robbing. If they rob a home, just happens to be somebody white or whatever, carjack, whatever. But deliberate, like, it is very small, because there is that fear. And that's when I say generational. It's a generational fear. It's the same fear that keeps us from investing in Black Wall Street all over the nation, not just Tulsa, but we can have a Black Wall Street in every country. For example, we've been minimized to say that's a bad thing. We say Black Wall Street, but isn't there a little Italy? Isn't there a little China? When you go to New York, there's, Chinatown.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. And it's not racism, because when somebody says to me, well, that's reverse racism, I say to them, okay, so then you just admit it. You just admit it
mm-hmm.
that you come from a racist doctrine. And they say, what are you talking about? I said, don't you know when you say reverse,
well,
it means you have
my theory, when you say racism, my theory of racism is this: Black people can't be racist. There's no way Black people can be racist, because in order to be racist, you have to have power over another race.
Yes, and we don't.
We can be prejudiced,
right? But we
but you can't be racist. So, and I don't think we have educated our people enough to understand that kind of concept. Because when you're systematically controlled, see, one thing, and me and you were talking about this earlier, when the system says, well, we'll give you're female and you got 2 kids, we'll give you housing. And you say, oh, okay, I'm going to go pick out one of these houses that the system has for me. But your husband or boyfriend can't come over there.
That's right. And we'll send somebody once a month to check and make sure they're not living there.
They're not living there. We're going to check. We're going to the Joseph is, the Billy Ray ain't coming through there. You know what I mean? We're going to check. You know what I mean? And so you were like, okay, Billy Ray, you can't come over here. You know what I mean? You got a couple of kids.
So now Billy can't help you to raise.
He can't help you raise those kids, because that's systematic control.
Yeah. And then what I do is I also put that pressure on Billy Ray. And then Billy Ray goes out there and commit a crime, and then I send him to prison where he's going to make me some money.
Well, see, the thing about it is Black people don't manufacture drugs. We're not manufacturers of no cocaine, no meth, no pills,
Nor
no
guns.
nothing, no guns. We're not no Smith & Wessons or no Glocks or nothing. We don't make that stuff.
But it magically appears in our
You
neighborhoods.
know, how it appears is Mr. Westheimer got all the drugs. He gets with Billy Ray. Look here, Billy Ray. Here's some dope, some drugs right here. You take this, bring me back $25,000-$30,000 on this batch of drugs right here. Okay? Billy Ray will go take those drugs, go into his black community, get with his boys, chop it up like a scientist, weigh it up like a businessman, package it all up and distribute it to the black community. If Billy Ray is not able to bring Mr. Westheimer back his $25,000, that's an issue. You get what I'm saying? Well, Mr. Westheimer, I got $15,000 right here. Boy, didn't I tell you to bring me back this money? You didn't bring me back this money. Oh, okay. All right. Well, I can get it to you by next week or 2 weeks. I can get it to you. You better bring me my money. 2 weeks passed by. Dang, man, I was only able to come up with $5,000. I still ain't got his money. Well, okay, boy, I told you to do this. Well, I'll see you in prison because I'm going to get you locked up. So Billy Ray back out in the community, back doing what he's doing, and all of a sudden he get busted. Off to prison he go.
And the next one steps up.
And the next one steps up, and the next one steps, so forth and so forth. And then the prison system becomes a community of noted people who know each other. Who are, if they don't know each other, they know somebody who do know each other, and it's a community within a community. Do you know 68% of the prison population in the United States of America are incarcerated black men?
And we only 13% of the population.
And we only 13% of this population.
But, you know,
Hispanics they're 17% now. They've outgrown us because they believe in family.
Yes.
They believe in unity and family. This black division between black men and black women and stuff like that, they're not into that. No. They into unification, having families. They're having sex. They building stuff, and they physically doing the labor.
They also help out. If you've ever saw like a real Hispanic family,
I've seen plenty of them.
About 12 of them in one house.
12 of them in one house.
Stereotypical.
Yeah.
And they helping so the next family could get a house. The same thing with Asian community. They help each other out.
Right. Asians are not going to really let you do nothing, too much of nothing in their community.
They help each other, and they build upon each other.
They truly. I've been in all those
Arab
communities.
Community also.
Yeah.
Jewish community also.
Also.
The only race that allows people to come in and divide and conquer is us.
Is our African American black people.
We don't, because you know why? We are really about a lot of glitz and glamour.
You know, we are that glitz and glamour. They manufacture the glitz and glamour to sell to us because they know we're gonna buy it. We're gonna buy it. We're gonna purchase it. We're gonna buy them new Nikes. We're gonna buy the jewelry. We're gonna buy the cars, and we're gonna buy all of these things that are not really beneficial to our growth and to our children.
Well, listen, we could have a Black Wall Street, a vibing Black Wall Street in Tulsa, like it used to be in every other community. Because look, the numbers are there.
Yeah.
If you look at the spending power of the African American community, it is in the trillions. We are the most powerful economic
We're
value.
consumers.
We are consumers, but we aren't builders.
We're not builders.
We aren't owners.
But you know, when you look at when I visit Atlanta, Georgia, and I see all these blacks who have economic growth and wealth in certain areas and stuff, I say, wow, man, if we could just somewhere just get it in our minds and our other cities to emulate those type of environments, man, and spend within ourselves, man, it would be just Black Wall Street all over again.
But it's a conditioning. It's a re-education. When people say, what do I see? What is keeping us from having Black Wall Streets all over? And, you know, one lady said, well, you know, it's really something that I said, listen, at the end of the day, nobody's races are prejudiced because they're identifying themselves. One of the reasons why we are where we are is because we have lost the pride within ourselves. There's nothing wrong with saying you're proud to be Black. That is not anti-white or anti-Asian or anti-anything. There's nothing wrong with looking the way that we look. We are, and I know this is going to touch a lot of people, but a Black woman is the most beautiful thing that God created. If you don't believe me, look at all of your stars and all of your people that are out there.
And that's something like us. That's something right there that we have to get back to, the respect of conditioning of the mind to. And when you say Black woman, you have to say Black man.
Yes.
Because Black man is probably the most feared being on earth.
He is.
You know what I mean? Man civilized the world. Okay.
Right.
We did the infrastructure. We built the water systems, electrical, the cars, everything. We put it there because we want to protect our women. Okay. Now, but the Blacks, husband and wives and Black, we've gotten away from that.
Well, because we've been conditioned to say
there's a lot of division right there now because women today Black women are more free today than they've ever been.
Right.
More free today. Because when you look at it, are we as strong as our ancestors before us? Do we have the will and the work ethics and the stuff as our grandmothers and our mothers and stuff before us? No, because it's more freedom to do more stuff.
But we also don't have when I hear people say all the time, oh, that's my man, I was strong, supportive. That's if we think about our grandmothers and our great grandmothers, they were home. Now, I'm not saying you have to stay home.
No.
But there was a strength that the Black man knew right there was his support.
He knew he had, look here, the Black man in those days, he knew that he had to be a provider for his family. Now, some of them strayed off and had other little families around and stuff. But for the most part, Black men knew, look, man, I got to go out to work. My family got to eat. I got to have some place to house my children, all of this. And they were more happier in those days of time. Now, today, we don't feel like that, but the other races, they're still there.
They are, and
they are still there.
You have it right, Bobby. We have women.
They are still there.
We have women saying, "Okay, don't worry about it."
Well, you got women saying, "I don't need no man." I don't need no man. What I need a man for? I can get this on my own. I got a PhD. You know what I mean? I got so and so. And then a lot of Black women will get degrees and go back to school so they can get a cubicle for somebody's company.
Right.
Just to get a cubicle for IBM or somebody, and get 30,000-40,000 a year. I'm just saying.
When you can own your own business.
When you can own your own business. But when we get into, and then you got Black men, a lot of younger Black men. I'm not talking about the older Black men. Younger Black men who just want to be on PlayStation and they want to smoke those blunts and that's all they want to do and so and so and so and so, and then impregnate you, Black women, and not be responsible, to take care of these Black children. These children grow up under the mother, and she's not a man. She don't know how to really raise no man, but they right there. She's letting the PlayStations and stuff raise them, but she's trying to do the best she can to feed them, and they don't have a mentor or anything in their lives to show them how to be a man. They can't even change. They grow up, be teenagers, can't even change the flat on a car. They never been taught how to push a lawnmower. They don't know how to do any of those kind of things, but they can tell you about came out.
Well, of course, and listen,
they can tell you about all of that now.
We can't stand in line or sit long enough to learn about economic development and growth and go to meetings and everything else, but we will get up at 4:00 in the morning to stand in line for a new pair of Nikes.
Yeah.
Now, that's promotional. And I was explaining this to our amazing kids the other day. We're talking, they come in, boss, that's what they call me. Oh, boss, let me tell you, blah, blah, did this. Blah. They know everything about everybody on these, television. And I said, you do know that's not theirs. And so they
Mhm.
looked at me and they said, what do you mean? They got a boss crib. I said, that's the record company that owns that.
Mhm.
And he said, no, that's such and such. That's Cardi B's house. I said, that's the record company. Leases those things for them. I said, see, there's a difference in fame and wealth.
Mhm.
You could be famous and not be wealthy.
Coming from an entertainment background, because I was a musician and I
Yes.
played with a lot of old school artists back in the day. I played with Natalie Cole for several years, and I worked with Bobby Womack and all of these old artists back in those days. Now I'm not active now.
I continue.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, and I was around all of these entertainers, and me and the Gap Band used to hang out, and Charlie and them, and a lot of those entertainers, like you said, the producers, the record companies bought the houses and released the product. The managers leased houses and cars for them and made them look like they had these things. And one thing that I understand too is more money is being made in today's time off of entertainment and sports than ever. You know what I mean? So when these guys sign these contracts, these sports contracts for $1 million a season and $2 million, $5 million, $10 million, LeBron James and all that, these guys have money to go and purchase things. But you never hear of any of the programs that a lot of these guys invest their money in. And some of them don't invest their money in nothing but their house. You know what I mean? They go buy them a 5-bedroom house and a 20 cars, and that's all they want to do. And they be stuck in their own little world rather than going out. They won't go back to their neighborhood where they were raised. How can you omit a neighborhood where you were raised up in poverty and an impoverished area, and you leave that neighborhood and make millions and millions of dollars and never go back to try to help somebody?
Because it wasn't instilled in you at the beginning.
Yeah. Well, a lot of them say, I'll never go back to that. I'll never go back. I don't like that at all. And that's almost like you saying you don't like yourself.
Yeah. That's like and that's a whole nother issue, but that's like I was having a discussion with some of the young kids, and they were explaining to me about why they wanted to mix races, because when they grow up, they want the kids to look a certain way. And I said, I'm sorry, what did y'all say? And they said, well, we want such and such and such and such. And the issue I had was with the moms, their mothers. Oh yeah, I want some pretty grandbabies. And I was like, do you understand? Have you looked in the mirror this morning? Do you understand what you were saying?
Pretty grandbabies.
To your son. Do you understand what you're saying to yourself? What you're saying is you're not enough. What you're saying is you are pretty or beautiful, whatever you want to say to yourself. But when you look at every television program, now everybody looks like us. Listen, I know everybody talks about it, but they're like a poster child to what I'm saying. The Kardashians all look like black women now. Every single one of them. But wait, this is what America defines as beauty. So if America is saying these are the most beautiful women and blah, 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 then what is that saying to you? Because they look like us. Thick lips, thick hips, boisterous body, the nose. So if this is the standard for beauty, then aren't we the standard for beauty? Because that's us.
We've always been the standard for beauty throughout the world. We've always been there. A lot of races have always tried to emulate us. We are the most creative people on the earth.
And the most intelligent, actually.
Most intelligent. We invented math. We invented so many things. If you go back and check African Americans in history, you'll say, wow, it'll blow your mind. And we're in America. We're a bouquet of flowers with different shades and colors and things like that here in America. But we must understand where we come from. Because if you can't understand where you come from, how do you know where you're going?
Well, and that's where we're lacking. And that's bringing us back to what we're doing here. One of the things that Black Wall Street here and every other place in America is lacking is education, re-education, should I say.
Re-education of self.
Information, pride, getting back to the roots of who you are, and then learning that it's okay to invest in your community. It's okay to go shop over here instead of JCPenney's. It's okay to open your own store. It's okay to leave that 501 company, 500 company that you're making. Your ideas are making them millions. Step out on faith.
And believe
in yourself and make your own money. Because what happens is, if you continue to be in fear, all you're doing is continue to help make this company more prosperous. If they're you saying, I'm fearful of going to open my own businesses, but you're
fearful of failure.
But you're making these people rich. See, the problem with people who think that they're going to fail, I always tell people, you fail when you plan. If you plan to fail, you fail to plan.
I think whenever we fail at something, it's a good thing, because therefore, most people who've had success have failed.
Yes.
Most people, I don't know not one person who's a successful person who haven't failed. Michael Jordan lost some games.
Yes.
You know what I mean? When he played, LeBron and lost some games. Oprah didn't always was on top. You know, Jay-Z wasn't always there. Everybody has failed at one time or another, but you got to get back up, and you got to get back up and keep going, and you got to be consistent in what you do. You got to have a game plan. Well, I'm going to do this, and this is by such and such a time, and we're going to work on this, and I'm going to work, and it's going to take it to this level, to that level, to that level, and you got to keep moving, because if you don't, you can't just take an idea and say, well, I'm going to do it. Let's say today is Tuesday. We're going to work on it today, and then I'm going to wait until next Tuesday to work on it again, and then I'm going to wait another 2 or 3 weeks or to a month and then work on it again. You got to work on that thing every day.
It's no good. You got to be consistent. I think that's a lot of the reason people don't want to put in the time
every day.
They don't want to put in the time. They don't want to put in the effort. And everybody wants something easy. They just want it to happen.
I believe that you got to put in something towards your goal every day.
You do?
Something. You know what I mean? It's just like some people go to the gym. They work out every day consistently. You got to do that for your business every day.
It's the key.
It's the key. Yeah.
Well,
it's the key.
Our listeners, I told y'all we were bringing the heat today. And I want to, first of all, thank you, Mr. Bobby, for giving us the time.
Thank you for having me.
Giving the education, the information, allowing us to come in and pick your brain and talk to you, and for you to educate the community, because that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
We're going to say to Mr. Bobby, we want him to close, telling us a little bit about how he can be reached, because
okay.
I want you to talk about your ending. So before we close, I want people to know a little bit about what you're doing. And
I moved back to Tulsa 6 years ago, and I opened up a radio station. I have a radio station here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, called KBOB 89.9 FM radio. We're also on Facebook, KBOB 89.9 on the Facebook, iHeartRadio. We have our own website. You can go to our website by going to kbob899.com. And you can see all the things that we've done in this radio station. I've had some interesting people come over here in this radio station. Danny Glover's been in here. Charlie Wilson's giving out commercials, and Alfred Woodard, and just a lot of Jesse Jackson and all of them, Carlton Pearson, and the list goes on and on. Come over there. I have 12 radio shows. So if you go there, you'll be able to see us, hear us, and we have a large following of people around the globe who tune into our shows. So KBOB899.com.
Thank you. And our listeners, you know how we do. So you will be able to see and hear all of the information. And we will also have it available. Everything that Mr. Bobby has told you about his radio show, the website, and everything else, the information will be available on Village Rising. So as always, we're going to continue to rise. We're going to continue to build our village. And we love you over here. Thanks for tuning in. Good night.
Thank you.
My city is on fire, and I can smell the fumes, waterproof. where the truth at? They say the proof is in the youth, and the truth is in you. My city's on fire, and I can see the flames all the way from the LL to Greenwood, Archer and Pine. My city's on fire, and you ain't gon' put us out this time, not this time. My city's on fire, and you ain't gon' put us out this time. It's in our eyes, about time you realize. And we done flame through the rain, and we done push past the pain. We a fire can continue to let you know my city's on fire. And you would put us out, but you